G'day, battlers, and today we are not only hopping into one Holiday Cup, but two, because Holiday Cup this season is coming to both Great League and Ultra League at the dates down the bottom there, 22nd to the 29th for Great League, and 29th to January 1st for Ultra League. Now, if you just want to skip straight to the metas straight away, those timestamps are down below. They're also in the little progress bar, so if you just want to skip straight to Ultra League, you can just go straight there as well, especially if you are watching this closer to December 29th. There's probably not as much reason for you to watch the video on the Great League. Now, first off, before we jump into that, what is the Holiday Cup? And essentially, it is a pretty simple meta that allows 6 unique typings. So normal, grass, electric, ice, flying, and ghost. If a Pokemon has at least one of those typings, it is eligible for the meta. There aren't any bans. So if it's got one of them, it's in. Simple as that, and either in the Great League or in Ultra League, depending on which meta you are playing with. Before we jump into the meta, though, I do want to quickly re-mention the Discord. First link down in the description down below. Definitely jump into that if you want to keep up to date and all the rest, especially with the Sylph Arena season coming pretty hot in our heels here, very soon, actually. But with that said, let's jump into the Great League Holiday Cup. Take it away, Great League Steve. Thanks, intro, Steve. So pretty simple infographic we have here with 3 main groups over there and a couple of other little Pokemon sprinkled in down the bottom that we'll get to after going through these first 3 groups. And these 3 groups are pretty simple in the grand scheme of sort of the Great League meta, that being the Flyers up the top, the Fighters down the bottom right, and then the Anti-Flyers in the bottom left, with that sort of pretty simple triangular relationship with the Flyers beating the Fighters being the Anti-Flyers, and the Anti-Flyers beating the Flyers, as is their main role. Sort of, I guess you could call it a bit of a bodyguard role. So that's sort of how that operates. When you start getting into the weeds, though, it isn't that simple. For example, Noctowl, even though it's got its move update, wing attack is so much better. It's really good in the Open Great League meta. It's really good in the Play Pokemon circuit. It is not as good in the Holiday Cup. Altaria just performs a little bit better. The Dragon Breath just sort of keeps adding up. Essentially, Noctowl, it still does really well against Obstagoon. Against Vigoroth, it tends to lose. Just the Body Slam spam becomes a little bit too excessive, especially with the counters doing that neutral damage with Noctowl's normal typing. But if you get a little bit of energy advantage, I think you need like 3 wing attacks. You can start to flip that matchup. Might be a little bit IV dependent, so worth checking on the PvPoke sims with your specific Noctowl, how you sort of want to play that, and maybe your specific Vigoroth as well, if you want to sort of win out that matchup too. Double is a little bit more interesting. It definitely leans in Double's favor, but Noctowl can definitely win those matchups. If it's running Body Slam Wild Charge, which I think is probably the way to go as opposed to Body Slam Payback in this particular meta. Just because, again, Noctowl exists and Wild Charge is really nice. Double sort of needs to do some funky games, so if they go for the Body Slam bait and they get to that successfully, they should do a pretty good job at sort of cleaning up the Noctowl after. But if they want to go straight Wild Charge, they sort of need to do the thing where they charge up a lot of energy, throw 1 Wild Charge, debuff themselves a little, and then keep charging up to 2 Wild Charges and then throw them back to back. It's a really weird matchup, and Double does actually do pretty well in it, but that one's a bit easier for Noctowl to flip if it has a little bit of energy, if you want to invest a few more shields, that sort of thing. So I'll put it down as a rough matchup. It's a little bit rough, and it generally goes in Double's favor, although it is definitely moveset dependent. And, you know, if in the dynamics of a battle where some Pokemon come in after others, there's a little bit of health, there's a little bit of energy, it can definitely go in either Pokemon's favor. So it's just something to keep in mind. Altaria, though, just does a really good job against all 3. Like, it is what it is. I mean, it resists the electric damage. Oh, does it resist? Maybe it's neutral from the Double's Wild Charge because of its Dragon typing as well as the flying. So something to keep in mind. Altaria is just really the main one you want to go for. The downside to Altaria being that it is even weaker than Noctowl to the Anti-Flyers. There's a lot of ice down there with Frostlass, Abomasnow, Alolan Sandslash, and then Aurorus as well, doing double super effective with the ice damage to the Dragonflyer, whereas Noctowl is only taking single and it is a little bit bulkier as well. Dunsparce coming in with a rollout. It's not as good a Pokemon, to be completely honest with you, as the ice types, but I just put it in there for the Dunsparce hype, because if you do want to run something a little bit different, something a little bit of bulk, and then also just something to have Drill Run for those electrics that may be hanging around as well, Dunsparce may be your guy for that. And also has Rock Slide for the other ice types. So Rollout Dunsparce might be a little bit of a secret weapon. We'll see how the meta sort of develops, whether it can sort of solidify its place. My hope is that someone, Jonk is just going to come out with some Dunsparce is OP in in the Holiday Great League meta, but we'll just have to wait and see how that all goes. Aurora's also running its brand new move, Meteor Beam, that it got in the Go Battle League update, and this is definitely a place where it would like to use it, but it is, it's a very expensive move, so it's a move that if you don't land it, it doesn't do as well for you, but if you can land it, I mean, even if just having it definitely puts some threat against the other ice types as well, but really simply, that's like sort of the basics of that over there. I mean, there's also the sort of like interrelationships of, for example, Vigoroth does double super effective counter damage to Obstagoon, whereas Obstagoon is only doing single super effective damage to Vigoroth, but Obstagoon also has access to Cross Chop, which does super effective, whereas Vigoroth doesn't have well, technically it has access to Brick Break, but to be honest with you, I don't really think you should run Brick Break. I think Body Slam Bulldoze is the way to stick to, but regardless, that is sort of the main meta. The electric types, I feel like they didn't quite fit into the graphic because they operate really differently from each other. For example, Lantern, obviously like they're sort of pegged as sort of anti-flyer, but with Altaria not taking as much damage from the electric type, it just does a little bit better. Altaria being able to beat Lantern, for example, also able to beat Pachirisu, whereas Noctowl is not able to beat those electric types. So again, it's sort of another case where Altaria is just sort of superior to Noctowl in this meta, and is probably like the one to pick. Noctowl is just a little bit further down on the rankings. But as far as like if you want to run an electric type as I guess a little bit of a core breaker, you could say, there's definitely sort of pros and cons depending on what you sort of want, what sort of hole your team is filling. If you're running a double fighter strat and you're already really good against Abomasnow, then you might be a little bit more comfortable running in a Lantern just for that sort of spammy surf damage that can do a lot of damage to a lot of the meta. Because surf just happens to be a really spammy, nice move, get some damage out and that sort of thing. But if you are weak to that Abomasnow, you might be leaning more towards the Pachirisu, more towards not the Dedenne. What's the little Togedemaru is what I meant to say. Just does a little bit better against Abomasnow. But with that said, that's sort of my Great League Holiday Cup Meta Simplified, really quick overview sort of donezo. So if this is where you're sort of hopping off the video, feel free, save this video for later, for next week when Ultra League comes back in. But otherwise, I'll pass it over to Ultra League Steve. Thanks, Great League Steve, and let's kick it off with the Ultra League Holiday Cup. So, again, this is going to look pretty similar to the Great League in the sense that we have the Flyers, we have the Fighters, and we have the Anti-Flyers over there. Just with some different Pokemon thrown in and a little bit more of a heavy emphasis on the fighting type down there. Actually, on the Great League graphic, none of them had the fighting type. I should have mentioned that then as well. It's very much pseudo-fighter, I guess you should say. But regardless, a little bit of a difference here. So, again, it's the simple matchup of 1 beats 1 beats 1 beat 1. We've got a bit of a triangle scenario. Not as many electrics fitting into this meta. There are some around that you can definitely run and have a place, but I've just sort of decided that they aren't metagraphic worthy, I guess. I apologize to all Ultra League Electric fans. Ampharos, my bad. But over in the Ice type sort of spot, I mean, I say Ice types, there is a Alolan Golem in there that is not Ice type, that is a non-XL option if you sort of want to save a little bit of dust. And it's only a 10k second charge move as well. So Alolan Golem is sort of the budget pick in this zone. There's a lot of XLs in this meta, as Ultra League tends to be. I probably won't be participating in this meta myself, but regardless, one of the big plays here is going to be Lapras. Lapras has access to Surf, and if you take a little look at that flying type spot, you've got two fires in there in Charizard and Talonflame. Charizard, who's had its wing attack buffed as well, same as Noctowl, same as Pidgeot, is a pretty strong Pokemon, especially against those fighters. And so by bringing in a Lapras that, unlike Abomasnow, or Alolan Sandslash, who both take double super effective damage from from fire type, you've got Lapras with Surf, which comes out pretty spammy. You can do some pretty good damage, pretty spammy damage against both Charizard and Talonflame, while still doing some big Ice Shard and potential Ice Beam damage to Dragonite and Pidgeot as well. So in my opinion, Lapras is probably the big pick for that sort of slot, the anti-flyer slot, although I do think that there are going to be quite a few double anti-flyer teams, whether that's potentially Regice, because Regice has access to Focus Blast. I know the PvPoke default moveset is Thunder Blizzard, But I think in this meta, you're going to want Focus Blast to hit all of the other ice types and Alolan Golem for super effective damage. Also, hitting Snorlax, Obstagoon, and Double over on the fighting type for super effective damage if you can land it. And then, you can either run Thunder or Blizzard. They both do super effective damage to pure flying. I feel like maybe Blizzard is the way to go just because Virizion is around, and so you can still do super effective damage to that, while also still sort of doing double super effective to the Dragonite, whereas Thunder is resisted by the Dragon typing, but super effective to the flying. So I'd probably recommend the I guess it's actually the cheaper one in terms of its non-legacy, the Blizzard Focus Blast on the Regice. So that's another option as well. The PvPoke the PvPoke rankings aren't up for the Ultra League version as I'm recording this, so there are a few little bits in there if you want to simulate it for yourself. Like it'll simulate Alolan Sand Slash with Shadow Claw. In this meta, Powder Snow definitely performs a lot better, so just take a little look at the movesets if you are going down that route. Now, up in the Flyers, as said, there is some more fire damage here, but there is also the Dragonite, who is just that big neutral dragon damage that basically hits everything in the meta for at least some big damage. Whether you want to go Dragon Breath or Dragon Tail, both still do a nice chunk of damage, but of course take a lot of damage from the ice types. So it's a little bit, I'm not going to say RPS because it's not RPS so much, but it can definitely be really hard countered. So something you have to watch out for, and is probably a case where you run Dragonite and 2 anti-ice Pokemon, even if one of those is Regice with Focus Blast. So maybe Regice plus double or something like that. Down in the fighters, we have it's a little bit different. We've got Virizion coming in with a fresh double kick, also very recently buffed. So if you haven't got one powered up, now might be the time. Does have that grass typing, which holds it back a little bit, but still able to do a lot of damage with its moveset, especially with Lapras actually having that water typing as well. Aurora's having the rock typing. There's definitely a lot for Virizion to do. Snorlax is really getting its big damage from Superpower. Superpower doing super effective to all those bottom lefts, but then also having access to that Body Slam to just sort of do neutral damage to everything else. It's not doing a lot of damage from those body slams because it's a bulky Pokemon as opposed to attack weighted, but it can do what it can do. Obstagoon, counter, cross chop, it is what it is with Night Slash. And then double coming in with low kick body slam as well. But pretty simple. There's definitely some more intricacies. Again, some other Pokemon that aren't on this graphic that can do quite well in the meta, especially depending on how the meta sort of unfolds with what Pokemon people sort of tend towards. So, if people really start leaning into that Lapras, then Virizion might have a little bit more play just because it's not dishing out as much ice charge move damage, whereas Aurorus would be doing that. So just something to keep in mind as the meta does sort of develop. But yeah, that is my both Ultra League and Great League Holiday Cup Meta Simplified infographics. If you were just checking this out beforehand and you want to go back to Great League, it's always going to be here. This video is not going anywhere. But yeah, thank you to my patrons and supporters over on, I was going to say over on Twitch, that as well, but also my YouTube members. And that is where we're going to end off today. So thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, especially that subscribe one. And I'll see you in the next one, which is probably the new Silph Arena meta. Join the Discord to keep updated. Yeah, bye.